Hi, everyone. We're just waiting for everyone to join. We'll start in 60 seconds. Okay, we'll get started. Thanks everyone for joining tonight. We are really excited to have several special guests with us. I'm going to talk a little bit about what TFC is doing right now, what we're working on, and then we're lucky enough to have DeAndrea Salvador, who's a candidate for North Carolina Senate with us, and Delegate Josh Cole, who is representing Virginia's 28th. And they'll both speak a little bit about not just what Tech for Campaigns and they did together, but also, you know, how they're thinking about the moment we're in right now. We'll talk a little bit about email marketing, just to make sure we get that in there. And then we'll have some question time, which TJ will help moderate. And we're lucky enough that Josh and Deandra will stay on for that. So for those of you I don't know, I'm Jessica Alter. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tech for Campaigns, and excited to have you guys here tonight. Hopefully you've all received at least an email from us around the moment that we're in. And TJ, if you don't mind moving forward. And I wanted to address a little bit about what Tech for Campaigns as an organization is doing, other than sending an email, which I think is not enough. So we think about the organization in a couple different ways. First and foremost, we have a team of 15 and growing on the sort of what we call HQ side that work at Tech for Campaigns full time. While we have good gender parity, I think we have a lot of work to do on diversity on the racial side. We've already started reaching out to different organizations for actually positions that we have open right now, both on the state director side and engineering, and also tech groups in general. So that's something that we're building into the recruiting model. It's a small organization, so we don't know what the percentage will be, but that's something that we've already started to build into the model, and we've committed to working harder on that. We have several boards at Tech for Campaigns. We have a political advisory board, we have a board of directors, and we have a leadership board. And I'm proud to say that the political advisory board, which we constructed only recently, is about 51% women and 42% minorities. And again, we do pretty well on the gender parity piece on the other boards, but we've committed to being 20% people of color by the end of 2021 on our both leadership and board of directors. We don't add people every day to that, so it's definitely a process and quite a commitment as well. So we are working on that. On the volunteer community, which now is over 12,500, we actually don't ask, so we don't know what the makeup is, and we don't plan to ask. But the general feeling internally is that we can do better. And so in the next 2 months, as we really ramp up projects and there's a lot of excitement, we're looking to partner with tech groups who represent minorities in tech and to get the word out about volunteering. This is a really easy way that people on this call could help, is by spreading the word to a wider and more diverse audience. And it's a great way for people that are frustrated to get involved in a pretty meaningful way. So this is a sort of easy thing you can do if you're part of those groups, or if you know groups that we should post in. You can even email us or post it in the Zoom chat tonight, and we'll reach out to them. And then on the candidate side, we're still honestly building our slate of candidates for 2020. Things are just ramping up now, and I'm sure DeAndrea can talk to that a bit. I can tell you that in 2018, we had 63.2% of our candidates were women and minorities. We'll continue to push to help a diverse set of candidates. A lot of the candidates we help are first-time candidates, and more state legislative candidates in particular are running and are, from different backgrounds. And I think that is making it actually easier for us to be able to help. Oftentimes, first-time candidates also just don't have the same help being offered to them. And so Tech for Campaigns is particularly helpful there. So these are some of the commitments that we've started to make over the last 2 weeks. We're open to other ideas. I do want to address, I think there's people that have reached out and said, can you make sure 100% of your candidates support certain policies? And the quick answer is we can't. We're not a policy or a one policy driven organization. And so we're looking to flip state legislatures, and that's what's really important. You'll see on the next slide, we hate Trump, but actually this is not a presidential problem. I'd love to blame it on him, and I don't think he's helped. But there are laws and policies that we really want to see enacted. And, sometimes we're talking about state legislative districts that are very small, and sometimes some of these things are big issues for them and sometimes they're not. So we're not just looking at one issue when we support candidates. We're looking at sort of the broader chamber and being able to flip that chamber, which I'd love Josh to talk to, since Virginia just flipped for the first time in decades. And they were able to pass historic legislation on many fronts. So when you think about, the problems that we're facing right now, defunding the police might sound like a great, quick solution, but really the issues are much broader. We're talking about voting rights, housing, economic issues, healthcare, education, transportation, minimum wage. These are all set by states and state legislatures in particular. And it's a slate of problems. I wish there was a silver bullet policy response. There's just not. And I think one of the things that is really important to consider is how are we going to take all of this energy and make sure that we can have policy changes. And the honest first way to do that is to make sure we're the party in power. And then we'll be able to pass things that we want to pass and as they come up. So that's very, very important. And with that, I'm going to quickly introduce Deandra and Josh. Deandra is a first-time candidate who I think, although Greg can correct me if I'm wrong, is our only candidate who's also a product manager. So she has that distinction.
I'm comfortable agreeing with that.
Yeah. Is, a fifth generation North Carolinian, and, is very big on education, ensuring teachers are paid a fair and living wage. And this is her first campaign. Is that right, Deandra?
Yep, that's right.
And a few months ago, TFC finished her website, which is personally one of my favorite websites. So I'm really excited about that. And then Representative Josh Cole will follow her, and we'll be able to talk, all three of us, afterwards. But I think Josh has the distinction of being elected in 2019 to a historic flipped Virginia House of Delegates. He'll also tell you about the fact that he lost in 2017 by 72 votes, right? So
that is correct.
Yeah. So, as you guys think about the work that we're doing, or whether or not your vote matters, it certainly does. And I'll just hand the floor to them to talk a little bit about their backgrounds, their districts, and what they're seeing in this time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jessica. I appreciate it. And thank you everybody for attending tonight. I just appreciate the opportunity to get to chat, hear a great testimony of a candidate that was able to go through the finish line and get elected, which is what I'm hoping my story will also in that way. And then also just talk about really the importance of this year in 2020 for a lot of the campaigns that you all may be working with, volunteering on, and supporting in other ways. So just a quick bit about me. As Jessica mentioned, yes, I am a product manager for a digital product agency that's 100% remote. However, before that, my background was in economics anthropology, and I actually founded a nonprofit organization that helped families with high energy burdens. So families that spent 20–30% of their income on energy sustainably decrease their energy costs through solar energy, energy efficiency, and providing things like internet and smart home technology. Through that work, we were able to see quite a bit of community benefit and change, and it really kind of just started from a conversation with my grandmother and her neighbor one day. However, many times I would get really frustrated when a program that we could do right across the border in South Carolina, so where I live in Charlotte, you can drive about 10–15 minutes and be in Fort Mill or Rock Hill, South Carolina. And programs that we can do just right across the border, we couldn't do in North Carolina because of our just legislative policy. And it would be incredibly frustrating to tell a family, like, I'm sorry, we can't offer this community solar benefit to you, or there's not certain efficiency programs, or just felt like these unnecessary barriers to helping the community that I grew up in. And more, as I was doing the nonprofit work, I saw that this issue was not just with energy. It was also in education, where we have some of the lowest per pupil spending on education in the nation. Additionally, when it comes to affordable healthcare, we have not passed Medicaid expansion in the state of North Carolina. So there are hundreds of thousands of individuals who are not able to access affordable health care that we are essentially missing out on. And so it became more and more as time went on, and I learned about all of these various things that were occurring, just so incredibly frustrating. North Carolina, just over the past few years, has unfortunately been known for its extreme gerrymandering. So it's been in the courts quite a bit. There have been statements in newspapers and external reports that have said that we are gerrymandered to surgical precision. So despite our state being 50-50 in terms of Democrats to Republicans, you look at our congressional districts, you look at our state Senate, state House districts, and it is completely lopsided. And because of the court ruling, the districts now in 2020 are much more competitive than they have ever been. Don't get me wrong, they're still very much gerrymandered. However, in 2020, we have the opportunity to flip the state house, the state senates, and put forward wonderful policies like they're doing in Virginia. So thinking about 2020 right now for us is we have the opportunity to put forth independent, nonpartisan redistricting. That's a big thing for me. I've taken the pledge. A lot of other candidates that are running have also taken the pledge, and I truly believe if we have the Democratic majority in state Senate, that will be one of the very first things that we would collectively file. And being able to get rid of gerrymandering just opens up the door for a wealth of other opportunities and information just for our state, and really can set this just course of our state in a much different trajectory. From there, we also, as you mentioned, we can start to tackle a number of other policy areas that really matter to the community. So whether that's minimum wage, whether that's fixing our unemployment insurance. Our unemployment insurance in North Carolina was gutted over the past decade with Republican control. And unfortunately, with what we're seeing now with COVID-19 and just folks really needing that assistance, they don't have it. We have the shortest duration, some of the shortest duration of unemployment insurance in the nation, also some of the lowest amounts. So it's really a tough situation when you stack that with the lack of Medicaid expansion, with the number of other items. So for us, 2020 is incredibly important. And I'm running to flip one of the 5 state Senate seats that we need in North Carolina. So we feel like the numbers are in our favor to be able to do it, but a big part of that is making sure that we can get in front of as many folks as possible. Because we can't go canvassing as easily this year, some of that has to be a little bit more digital and phone based. So that's why having Tech for Campaigns come in and do our website, especially doing it over March when things were really ramping up, really helped to get us on a trajectory that, you know, despite all of the unfortunate circumstances, our campaign can still build momentum. So I'm tremendously grateful just for being able to work with y'all.
I'm gonna let Josh, or Representative Delegate Cole, talk a little, and then we can all talk.
Awesome. Well, DeAndrea, I'm really excited about your race this year and all that you're going to be able to do. I just did a little peep to see where you guys are, and I'm looking at 21 Democratic seats to 29 Republican seats in the Senate. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Okay, and 55 Democrat seats to 65 Republican seats in the House. So let me tell you how powerful that is and how really, really close you all are. In 2017, when I ran the first time, the House of Delegates in Virginia was down 33 Democrats to 66 Republicans. And in one night, we flipped 15 seats and went from 33 to 49. And we lost our race by 73 votes due to some mishaps at the voting booth. And if we would have won, that would have been at 50-50. And if my good friend and seatmate Shelley Simons would have won that bowl draw, that would have been at 51. And so in one night, we literally almost wiped out the Republican majority. And we technically did, if it wasn't for gerrymandering and voter suppression and all those things like that. So I'm excited to be here with you guys, a product of Tech for Campaigns. You guys did an excellent job with our website when I ran last year. So this was my second cycle. I ran in 2017. And back when I first got in the race, it was 2016, right after the presidential election. And a lot of people thought it was a long shot. They thought that maybe we would flip maybe 5 seats in the House of Delegates. But taking control of the majority was never one of the things they considered. And looking at the map and seeing the seats that Hillary Clinton had won that were currently held by Republicans that we could flip, I was like, I think we can do this. And looking at our seats, I was actually running against the Speaker of the House. He had been our delegate for over 30 years. I actually was a former employee of his. And so, you know, they had kind of already wrote me off. They're like, oh, you're cute. This little cute little 26-year-old think he's going to take out the Speaker of the House. And 3 months into our race, the Speaker retired. He said he was done. He was going to live the rest of his life. And everyone was kind of like, okay, maybe you have the opportunity. But again, our district was not one of the ones that Hillary Clinton won. She lost our district by 2 points. So again, we were written off. So when we came to the end of election night in 2017, we lost by just over 100. It was like 108 votes, I believe. After we did our final canvas tally, it was 86 votes. And by the time we did our recount in December, we moved up to 73 votes. We also discovered that I remember the number skips me now, but 100 and some odd people had received the ballot for the other adjacent district. So again, going to your gerrymandering cause. And the adjacent district, the 88th House district, the incumbent, the Republican incumbent, has the exact same last name as I. So in the city of Fredericksburg, where they had these corners that are cut, there were people who went to go vote for Joshua Cole, but got the ballot for Mark Cole and checked his name thinking they were voting for me. And so the courts threw that case out. And by that time, I was over it. I had felt like I was living through an episode of House of Cards or something. And I was like, I'm done. My friend won her race. She allowed me to come on. She hired me as her chief of staff. So I still made it to the General Assembly. And I got to be up close and personal again, working as the chief of staff for Delegate Kelly Converse Fowler. And people kept pulling. They're like, we need you to run again. We need you to make sure that you're present. This district has not seen a candidate like you, so we need to make sure that you're going to stay at it. And we did. And so we came back around in 2019, and the differences between the races were extremely stark. We were able to raise more money. We were able to garner attention. We got the endorsement of President Barack Obama, Joe Biden. We had many people who came in to help out, and it was just really amazing. And so when we won in this past November, we flipped the General Assembly, both the House of Delegates and the State Senate, and we became the first Southern Democratic trifecta in the entire United States. And so we're sending that rave down to North Carolina now to you guys. And so talking about the Democratic—
You gotta send it to Florida too.
Florida too, yes. And talking about the Democratic trifecta, here are some things that you all can look forward to. We are currently in the midst of fighting for independent redistricting reform. We are all committed in the House of Delegates, especially as Democrats, for redistricting reform. We voted and passed a constitutional amendment. There were some flaws in it and some issues that some of our colleagues had, but it passed. And so it's now going to the ballot in November. We're waiting to see if that's going to get passed. But that has literally taken the hands of the legislators from drawing their own districts, now place it into the responsibility of a commission that will draw those lines. We ratified the ERA. We implemented same-day voting. We implemented automatic voter registration, which was one of the first bills the governor signed of ours. So we're really excited about that. We enabled more options for women to maintain their own bodily autonomy. We raised the state minimum wage. We expanded Medicaid in 2018 with the new General Assembly. So that was really excited that we were able to do that. But we expanded options for people to look at healthcare. All of these different things are things that came out of Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy.
In the last 6 months.
In this last session between January and March. So when you think about that, even one of my great mentors, Delegate Jennifer Carroll Foy, introduced the Crown Act with Delegate Dolores McQuinn. So Black women and women of color and men of color could not be fired for having dreads or kinky curly hair anymore. All of that came out of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So it is something that we all can look forward to. We are leading the nation and following some other states that, Virginia was not looked at as a liberal state, so to say. And we were thought of as being a purple state. Now we're blue, but we're fighting to get a little bit more bluer. And so we're really excited about redistricting reform and what could possibly happen by having fair districts. And I keep sharing this with friends and family. Keep in mind that we won the General Assembly and flipped the General Assembly with Republican gerrymandered maps. So that just goes to show you that change can come and change will come once you keep fighting and keep at it.
Thank you guys so much. Let me ask you just a couple quick questions. We'll do a little bit of an update and then we'll take questions from the audience after that. But, I think people feel particularly both frustrated and energized right now. And if you could pick just sort of a couple policies that you think would make a huge impact in this moment, in addition to the protests on the street, what are some of the policies that you think would have the biggest impact?
Yeah. Did you want to go first, Deandra?
Oh, you're welcome to go first, but it's really your preference. Yeah, I'm happy to go too.
So with everything that's been going on, the governor of Virginia has already indicated that he was going to call us into a special session specifically to deal with COVID-19 issues and the state budget, because we've had to revamp our entire state budget with everything that's going on. And so within the past couple of weeks, because of all that we're seeing, the governor is who calls the special session, but it's the Speaker of the House who sets the agenda for the special session here in Virginia. So I reached out to Speaker Phillicorn and I said, hey, I think it would be really, really expedient upon us to act on some police brutality and abuse of power legislation during this special session. And apparently I wasn't the only one of my colleagues who reached out and expressed those concerns. So I believe she will allow us to introduce certain legislation. And I actually just sent out a press release today outlining some pieces of legislation that I intend to introduce. One of that is a push for independent community review boards, and that would replace internal affairs for police officers. And we want to make sure that that review board matches the demographics of the localities. So, you don't get an all-white police board, review board, or depending on the area, an all-black review board. We want to make sure it matches the demographics versus with race, with age, with the gender. We want to make sure that all of that is in there so people are represented. We're also taking a look at, we had a story that happened right here in the 28th House District. One of our police officers was fired from the city of Fredericksburg, and within the next week, he was hired in the adjacent county, Spotsylvania County. So I'll be putting forth legislation that would prohibit the rehiring of police officers within the Commonwealth of Virginia when they're fired or let go from a police force for, you know, issues and concerns. And we also want to pay attention, and I keep saying this, that we want to pay attention to what's going on in their record in the mental health. Because we shouldn't wait until a George Floyd or a Breonna Taylor incident happens for us to look at their record and say, oh, look at all these ticks that are on there. We should be taking concern and looking at that now so that we can prevent issues like George Floyd, so we can prevent issues, you know, like Tamir Rice and different things like that from happening. We want to be proactive instead of reactive.
Yes, awesome. DeAndrea?
Yeah, I mean, I would support every single one of those policies that Delegate Cole is mentioning. I think in North Carolina, it's also repairing some laws that were passed over the recent years. So back in 2016, for instance, the Republican governor at the time signed a bill into law that essentially blocked a lot of access to police body cam footage, which you have to go to a judge, and there's just a lot of barriers in order just for the public to be able to see what happened. And I think that creates a lot of distrust, and it just doesn't feel like the right way, the right direction to be going. So I think looking at some of the things that just have occurred in recent years and how to unblock those things would absolutely be a priority of mine. I think going to what Delegate Cole was also saying, having that statewide registry of use of force, being able to increase that transparency, those types of things would be absolutely top of mind.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we'll come back and we'll open this up for questions in a second. We're gonna move on to a couple other big things, including email fundraising, which is something that we did for Delegate Cole in 2019. So I'll let TJ take over a little bit there, and then we'll come back for some Q&A.
Actually, I think we're going to start with Greg, but.
All right, I'm on. So hello, everybody. I don't know. I'm the campaign director here at TFC, which means I get the pleasure of working with all the candidates as they come on to our onto service and platform. So where we're at cycle to date, so all of the campaigns that have an election up in 2020, that we've now started or completed work with 53 campaigns, almost 100 projects, very, very close. I'm sure it'll be 100 by tomorrow. And that's along the way to doing over 300 projects this year. And we are focused in states like Florida, North Carolina, obviously, Texas, Michigan, and some projects in sort of certain spots around the country that we can help with, including Alaska and Missouri. So it's a very exciting roadmap. We're kind of getting to the point where a lot of campaigns coming out of the COVID kind of disarray are getting their plans back together, figuring out where they're going to land, and starting a lot of work. So TJ, I know, is very, very busy, and his team staffing all these projects. The new projects channel on Slack and our Wednesday newsletter have all the announcements for the different projects that are going out. So we worked for quite a while in waiting for this moment, and now it is starting. So it's exciting stuff. And I think TJ, then I'll hand it back to you.
Yes, thank you for that plug. We do have a lot of new projects coming in. And this month we'll talk about email projects specifically. We're expecting to do somewhere between 75 and 100 email projects in 2020. That's about a third of our overall project workload. And email is critical for state legislative races. Email is an opportunity to really increase fundraising for the campaign. It's a chance for us to have engagement with constituents, candidate supporters, volunteers, and again, most importantly, the donors. Our email projects focus on a few main areas for the team. One is template design, and I will caveat that for our audience who's very familiar with NGP. It is not easy to design a useful and good template, but we have many different people who are working on that for us and working with us, including the North Carolina team. The email projects also do copywriting. They'll do subject line testing. They'll do segmentation and analysis. Some of the main tactics they do with their email programs, deadline-driven fundraising. We've been creating a lot of welcome series for website signups. You'll see a lot of endorsements, introductions of candidates. We've started doing a lot of email kickers as reminders for people who haven't opened an email to check back in addition to surveys and bringing up timely issues and messages. Email teams are made up of a team lead, an email marketer, and a data analyst. The next slide we're going to go is actually focusing on a team that won Tech for Campaign's Team of the Week award this week. You saw in the newsletter, Brianna Plaza, Jocelyn Ross, and Lauren Bryant are the team members who are running Deb Lavender's email program, and I'd like Brianna to share a little bit about their success that they're having.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna. This is my third project with Tech for Campaign, so I finally made it to Team of the Week. I'm like really pumped after all this time. I work full-time at Global Citizen, which is an advocacy organization, and I also run our email there. So part of what I've tried to do with our team here is take best practices from what we do at work and implement them here. And we've kind of aligned on our two teams doing different tasks for the campaign. So the TFC team focuses on purely fundraising and then implementing these best practices, while Deb's team focuses on the Deb stuff. And so we have two different voices. We have the Team Lavender voice, which is what we do, and then we have the emails that are really from Deb. And so hers are more talking about why she wants to be in the campaign and what she's trying to work for. And we just kind of go short and quick fundraising emails. So we've honestly just been trying to make them pretty short, and we, talk a little bit about why it's important. And then we've started to implement some segmentation, which I think has been really helpful on why we've been so successful. So we first segmented out people who haven't opened in the last 4 months or so. At my office, we do it 90 days and our system automatically does that. I have not found a way to do that automatically in NGP. So if anyone else knows, I'd love to hear it, but I just go back 4 months and we hit the most engaged people. So that's our base list. And then within that, Jocelyn, who handles all of our data, will then give me lists on kind of our lower donors. We do sometimes 0 to 10, 0 to 20, and then different categories within that, and so then we'll ask them for a different amount. So if you've given from 0 to 10, we'll ask you to give 10. If you've been maybe 20 to 50, we'll ask you for 50, and we've done some bigger groups, and we've seen some pretty good success on going in with a higher ask for people that we know have been giving more. And then we've also tried a few things like asking for a recurring donation if you've given any amount on multiple occasions. And we've also been segmenting out users who have maybe hit their limit in the state or who have given the last, email. And so we don't hit people with too many donation asks. And so what we've been doing is a mid-month ask and then an end of month ask, and we'll do it twice. So we'll do this Friday, in a week, the 15th. We have our first middle month ask, and so we'll just ask our engaged group. We'll divide it into a few different segments, and then for the one that's a few days later, for kind of our last call, we'll take out everyone that's already donated so we can make sure that they're not getting annoyed. And then we'll repeat the process at the end of the month with, last call, it's the end of the month, we're trying to hit our goal. We've also put in, we're X dollars away from our monthly goal. And Kyle, who is our contact on Deb's team, says that that's just like a made up number, but it helps people be motivated to be like, okay, they're so close. So if I put in like $10, we'll get there. So we've seen some success in that as well.
I think that's great. Do you have any like one or two top tips?
I think segmenting has helped us a lot. On the very least, it makes our numbers look good. So I think it's just like a nice thing to be like, okay, these emails are doing well. And so we also know that these people are engaged. And then I think asking people for a specific dollar amount has also been really helpful for us.
What is that total dollar amount from May?
I think you said 9,000. Is that what you told us?
It's 9,008, but yeah.
Okay.
That's an awesome take. So congratulations, not
Thanks.
only on being Team of the Week, but on doing a lot of really awesome work for Deb Lavender and her campaign.
Yeah, I also was going to say NGP is special, and the templates that are in there are like very boring, but I also, the templates that the TFC team had existing were also too long, and my coding skills are like way out of whack. So I just kind of rebuilt ours from the NGP ones, but I think kind of making it mirror what the campaign looks like. So Deb Lavender loves to lean into her name color. So we, added the purple footer and we have the image on top. And so I think just kind of I personally favor crisp email campaigns. And so this is what I've tried to do for our team.
I think that is sound advice, and I appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you very much, and thanks for joining us here.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Brianna.
I will pass it on to you now, Jessica.
Great. So I'm extremely excited to just let everyone know about 3 new hires who have started in the last few weeks. Stephanie Magda has joined as Chief of Staff, and she's got a background first and foremost in digital ads and user acquisition at Google and Wilbur Labs, and she's helping on a multitude of things and honestly making my life better, including outreach to the entire volunteer community and helping to grow that volunteer community in strategic ways, including all of our virtual fundraisers. So we're hugely excited to have her on board. Carla Hayes has joined as State Director for Florida. She has a storied career in marketing, a lot of it in the real estate world, but also J&J. And then Chris Aaron Canary has also joined as the Texas State Director, and she has an amazing background in marketing at places I'm sure many of you recognize: Dollar Shave Club, Headspace, which I think everyone could use a session this week, and CodeSpark. And she co-founded a company called Good Job that helps people track their happiness at work. And I thought we would just give Chris Aaron a few minutes to talk about why she joined and how she's thinking about things.
Thanks, Jessica. I'm so glad to meet everybody. I was so excited to hear from Joshua and Deandra. That I'm so fired up after hearing you and listening to your stories. I was sitting like this while you guys were talking. So I'm really happy to be here. I think, like a lot of us after 2016, I felt really helpless. I text bank for Hillary. I've been donating to my favorite candidates up and down the ballot, but as we're getting closer to the election, I was looking for a way to make a bigger impact on the events that are going on, and especially on a local level. And I just happened to stumble upon the state director job for Tech for Campaigns, and it kind of stuck with me, and I went on a run, and I came back from the run and I pulled up the job description and applied right away on a whim, even though I've been consulting for the past year and kind of comfortably working 20 hours a week while homeschooling a 6-year-old, so not that easy. But when the opportunity came around, I just couldn't pass it by. And so I'm really excited to be here and dive in and use my skills in marketing to be able to make an impact and hopefully flip some seats in Texas and turn it blue.
Awesome. We're super excited for all the new hires, and I just want to mention, I think sometimes people may take for granted or not realize how just dogged hard the Tech for Campaigns team works, and is working. And TJ and Greg and Chris Aaron and everyone on the team just are working incredibly hard. So just want to remind everyone on this call to, when they come in contact with them or send them an email or a Slack, just to also say thank you, because there's just no way we could handle what we're doing without a great team. As TJ and Greg mentioned, this cycle will handle 300 digital projects. It's a huge number, and over 100 campaigns. So it's it's a huge volume and a lot of work, and people are working their asses off to do it. So I want to recognize them, and I couldn't be prouder of the team. I think, you know, people always feel this way, but particularly in this time, we get a lot of questions about how can I get involved? How can I help? Of course, you can volunteer. If you're on this call and you haven't volunteered yet, you should go to the site and volunteer. You will not get staffed on a project if you're not in the volunteer community database. And how that works is once you volunteer and you tell us your skill sets, when there's a project that matches your skill sets, you'll get an email, maybe soon a text, but right now an email. And we have an internal KPI that we staff all projects in 6 days. So if you don't respond right away, you won't get on that project. And so it's really important to respond to those emails promptly or text messages. Not just because, but because it will help you help. If you do not have @techforcampaigns.org going to your inbox, you should do that. I'll even talk slowly so you can do it while we're on this call and multitask. So look out for those emails. The second big thing is in the last 10 days, we've had close to 1,000 people volunteer, and people are hungry for something to do that feels meaningful to them. And so if you have a tech or digital skill, the chances are you have a network that has that. We created a page so that people can see why volunteering now matters, techforcampaigns.org/fightback. It's also on our social channels. So if you want to share that with your friends or colleagues, that's also a huge help. They are looking for things to do. And then of course, donating, you know, we have, I would say 20% of our volunteers are also donors. And so that's not only special, but really important and helpful. And as you think about organizations that you can donate to in addition to Tech for Campaigns, you know, I really encourage you to think about smaller organizations where your dollar is going to go further. The same with campaigns. State legislative campaigns raise 1/10 to 100th of the money that a federal campaign raises. So, you know, if you're giving $1,000 or less, that is hugely awesome, but it will go so much farther on a state leg campaign. And then finally, we're hiring. I don't know if there's a slide about it, but you can go to techforcampaigns.org/careers. We're hiring both on the engineering side, and we're hiring probably 3 more state directors. So if Chris Saren's story resonated with you and you have a marketing/product background, we'd love to talk to you. We're in the throes of it, so you should apply soon. August will be way too late. So that's some of the ways to get involved. Obviously, that's a Tech for Campaigns focused way. You can find other ways, but I think the most important thing is, you know, not to just marinate in your frustration or your anger, but to actually get involved and do something. So with that, I think we'll open it up for some questions. Is that right, TJ? And we'll let TJ moderate. I did see one question, Josh, for you before, and if you guys have questions, you can post them in questions. But for you, that asked, what changed between 2017 and 2019? Was there a unified message among the Democratic candidates that really resonated with voters, particularly in a southern state? I'll let you answer. I also have an add-on that I'll tack on when you're done.
So I wouldn't say anything quote unquote changed. I think that, again, as I stated earlier, I think the mentality was we weren't going to flip the General Assembly. And when they saw that we had the ability to flip it, everyone got motivated. Oh man, we just need 2 more seats in the House. We just need 2 more seats in the Senate. There was an issue that arose. The Supreme Court reviewed gerrymandering and saw that 11 districts in the General Assembly had been racially gerrymandered. So they demanded that the districts be redrawn. And after those 11 districts were redrawn, 21 of them actually were impacted. So mine was not one of those, but 21 districts were impacted. And so that's why we believe we added more seats in the House because of the fair redistricting that happened between the two elections. But again, especially here in our region, specifically for the 28th House District, when people didn't think we had a chance, after we showed them in 2017, everyone was motivated. The Republicans were even on high alert. And the delegate who beat me in 2017 lost in his primary to an extreme far right candidate who said that he had become too liberal. And so when that far right candidate lost, everyone was like, oh, this is a shoo-in for Josh Cole. I was like, no, it really isn't. We still have to work. We still have to campaign. So the mentality of the people didn't change. They were still motivated to flip the General Assembly and get from under Republican control. The House of Delegates was controlled by Republicans for 25 years here in Virginia. And so they really wanted to get from under Republican control. And then with redistricting that helped us out, that random redistricting for those 21 districts, and then just seeing the close line that we had to get over, just 2 seats in the House and 2 seats in the Senate.
Yeah. And I would just say, like, no chamber actually flips in one cycle. Every chamber that flips is a multi-cycle flip.
Absolutely.
It actually does the flipping in a cycle, but any chamber that flips, it's multiple cycles that it took to get there. And Delegate Cole was mentioning 2017, which was the first year TFC got involved. It was actually a historic pickup, and more seats actually than in 2019, just on a volume basis. So, one of the things that we do, and we have an awesome team that helps do it, called Build the List, is when we're looking at, we score every state district in the country, and then we roll that up and say, which chambers can we help? When we think about flipping, we think about flipping on 2 to 3 cycle timeline. So as an example, that's why we did Texas last year, which people now think might be flippable. It's going to be tough, but if you don't start, a cycle or 2 before it's actually flippable, then it will take a lot longer. So flippable is a weird word. TJ,
So we have one question about social media. For Deandra and Josh, how are you thinking about social media now and fighting disinformation?
For us, given that we are not currently in office, we are sticking to just sharing like trusted information sources. So we frequently, for stuff related to COVID, we'll share the Department of Health and Human Services. We will just kind of stick to like sources that we feel like should be shared. Fighting disinformation, I think that's a great question. It's one that we're trying to figure out. And if there are any experts on the call today, I would love to hear it. We really try not to reinforce disinformation. So we aren't repeating the disinformation we're hearing. We're just making sure we're sticking to sharing what we think is the most helpful, the most scientifically accurate information, and not like in trying to turn away the disinformation, actually reinforcing the disinformation. But I would love to hear for you as well, Delegate Cole, kind of what you all are doing.
So we utilize social media in different ways. I basically utilize Facebook as my information platform. That's where I share the news articles or what we've done in the General Assembly. And it's what we say is fact from our standpoint. Twitter, on the other hand, is more so of my voice. Now, mind you, I maintain all of our social media accounts, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I maintain them personally. But on Twitter is where I use it to get sassy, if you will. So whereas there's misinformation or disinformation that's being shared, I'll retweet and then say, actually, this is what really happened. Or if you recall, HB 223 actually stated, I get a little sassy on Twitter because I feel that's a more personal approach. There's also a younger generation on Twitter, so we can actually go back and forth and talk about things on Twitter. Whereas on Facebook, I just share the information and put it out there, and sometimes we engage in the comments. But you're right, it's a lot of misinformation being shared, and a lot of people are just posting whatever they see. And so we utilize social media for Facebook to put out the information as is. And then on Twitter, we do the same thing, but it gives me the opportunity to you know, communicate the way I want to communicate via Twitter.
Greg, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think one thing we tell candidates often is sort of like Delegate Cole just laid it out, where a lot of your voters are going to be on the Facebook side, and Twitter tends to be for news junkies and politicos and journalists and people that want to be on the inside. And so that kind of repartee that Josh is outlining fits that platform very well. And one thing we've seen keep ticking up over the years is trolling. So it's become a very noticeable phenomenon, and I'm sure both our folks here get lots of little push notifications on their phones of trolls too often, and so that's become something that we've even had to come up with advice about how to tune out, since there's not really much we can do about it. But it is a thing we wish it wouldn't happen, and I think a lesson for a lot of candidates and folks working on campaigns is pretty much to ignore it and keep focusing on the proactive and positive messages that folks want to get out.
I'll just throw a question out there for Deandra, and Greg and I can chime in as well. But Matthew's asking, what are the high-level trends we're seeing from campaigns and how they reallocate their spend, given the inability to canvass during COVID-19? So you don't have to talk to high-level trends. You could talk to what you're doing. And
we are absolutely reallocating funds to do digital. We're hoping at some point we'll be able to raise enough so that we can be super specific and do like micro-targeting on social media, maybe bump ads, things of that sort, just to reach specific voter demographics through social. That is our optimistic view. If we're not, then we might have to just do zip code specific and kind of see what we get from there. But we are increasing social. We're increasing doing like having to pay or do Zoom events. So just kind of those additional technology platforms and making sure that they're as easy as possible to use. So we are completely shifting. We're also increasing mailers because we realize there's a whole demographic of folks who might not know how to just hop on Zoom, and we don't want to be missing them if they're not on social media or, you know, have internet access. So we are increasing our mailers as well to reach folks.
Yeah, I think overall we're seeing that as a similar trend. I think it's probably taken longer than people thought for the spend to be reallocated, because one of the big things with COVID has just been a lot of uncertainty on two fronts. One, how long will this last? And two, what is it doing to fundraising for candidates? So they're not just reallocating their budgets, but they're rebudgeting, meaning they don't know how much they're going to be raising. So there was a bit of a pause for a while. This is one of the reasons actually that, you know, the projects like email are so important right now, because they can help not only communicate information and have a consistent connection to supporters, but also raise money without spending money, which is always a fun way to raise money. Greg, anything to add?
No, I was going to echo that a lot of folks March is the time that you start getting your operation really earnestly off the ground, or, you know, before that, but that's a big inflection point, and that of course is when COVID hit. So the financial picture was very murky for a lot of people, and I think we're now at the point where the pace of change has slowed down, and folks can kind of make plans.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So one of the big questions, Josh, that we're getting is for you to talk about the action figures in the background. And I would be remiss if I did not bring this up.
So I am a huge Marvel fan. I'm a really big Marvel and Star Wars fan. And so the first thing I did when I got my own place a couple of years ago, I turned one of the bedrooms into my home office, and I made the whole home office Marvel Legends figures. And if you ever have the privilege to come to the General Assembly in Richmond, find me, because my office in Richmond is lined with Funko Pop figures all across the room.
You're lucky people are not traveling a lot right now, because otherwise I think we'd be booking tickets. TJ, other questions?
I think a lot of the other questions are coming around TFC projects. And I will just take a moment to reiterate that when you sign up to volunteer on our website, you automatically get included in our weekly newsletter. Every Wednesday, we send out projects that are open. If you've ever been on a project, you can also check the new projects channel in Slack. They come out a little bit more frequently there. It's important that your LinkedIn profile is up to date, because we look for people with the right skills for candidates. Our projects are time-bound. It's important that we do them professionally. This is a volunteer job, but this is something that we do with digital excellence. Looking at the example of Deandra's website is just a perfect representation of the type of skills that we try to find and bring. The team of the week for email as well. So those are the key tips for how you get staffed, is make sure you're applying for a job where your skills are right, or applying for a project where your skills are right, and your skills are current on LinkedIn.
The other thing is, we are sending individual emails to people. If you're not getting the newsletter, that means you're also not getting those emails. So I would just make sure it's going to your inbox and not spam. You don't need to email us. It's not we email everyone. So I would just check your spam folder, check promotions, make sure it's going to your inbox. Greg, there's someone, and DeAndrea and Josh, I think this is an interesting question for all of us. So Mark is asking about vote by mail. And maybe each of you could talk about how your states are handling vote by mail, and then Greg and I can talk about how TFC is involved.
So here in Virginia, we have absentee voting ballots. So we've technically been doing voting by mail for a while here in Virginia. You can request absentee ballots. It'll be mailed to your house or wherever you are. They'll mail it to you. You fill it out. You do have to have a witness signature. You pop it back in the mail, and then it will be counted. One of the things that the governor just removed for the primary election, because we're stuck in this whole COVID thing and certain areas are still not open in Virginia, he did away with the witness signature, especially if you're elderly or you don't live with somebody and you don't feel comfortable coming out. And some localities in Virginia, especially the city of Fredericksburg, I covered 2 localities, the city of Fredericksburg and Stafford County, but in the city of Fredericksburg, for their most recent municipal election they just had last month, they allowed you to put your absentee ballot in the mail without a stamp. So you could just throw the envelope in the mail, and the post office workers will get it and deliver it to the registrar's office. And the registrar also had a special drop box outside of the office that if you just wanted to drop it in there yourself, you could. So we've been advocating for as many people as possible for this June 23rd primary coming up in 2 weeks to request an absentee ballot. And in Virginia, you have requirements or excuses you have to fill out. And the governor, with an executive option, stated anyone will choose an option that sickness or illness is keeping them away, and they wouldn't have any issues or concerns getting those ballots in.
That's really incredible. Unfortunately, in North Carolina, our vote by mail system is not where Virginia is. Currently, you need 2 witnesses or a notary, and also you have to pay for postage, those types of things. So I think that there was a recent House bill that was passed that the Senate is considering to lower the witness signature count from 2 to 1. However, there are some concerns with the bill that they are putting in some like voter ID requirements, which is concerning. So the state of North Carolina has a lot of work to do. I'm certainly hoping that they'll be able to figure out a way for vote by mail to be more accessible for folks here in the state.
I think the varied responses just reiterate the importance of focusing on states and state legislatures. This is actually not going to be fixed nationally. Voting rights are done by state. So someone asked, can we collectively advocate? Yes, but we would need to do it state by state. So, you know, if you were watching, or if you haven't watched, you can go to our Instagram. What occurred in Georgia yesterday, you know, people waiting in line for 3 hours to find broken voting machines. You know, this is an issue across many states. And I know people get very up in arms about it. People love Stacey Abrams, and they were very upset about it. But then when you give and when you go to support campaigns, you're not supporting state campaigns. You're not supporting secretaries of state because they're not sexy and they're not on the news. But those are the campaigns the Republicans are paying attention to because they know they have all the power. So, you know, unfortunately we have to wrap up here, but I just want to end by saying two things. One is Tech for Campaigns is working on vote by mail initiatives. We just did a big test in Pennsylvania. We're not quite ready to talk about it yet, but we are working on it because it is such a big state issue and we care about the state. So it is something that we're working on. It is not clear how things will work in Republican-led states right now. So, you know, there's a big divide there, and I think Josh and Deandrea's answers show that. One has a Democratic legislature and a Democratic governor, and one has a very Republican legislature. So if there's one message I can leave you with, is all of the energy and all of the frustration are totally understandable, and you know, we want you to channel that in the ways that you guys see fit. But a lot of the impact that can be made at the state legislative level. And you know, I'll just go back, not to beat a dead horse, but you know, Josh lost by 72 votes in 2017. So like, those ads matter and those votes matter, and that's rarely true of a federal race. So it's not to say that those races aren't important. It's just to say that things need to get a little bit more in balance and focus on who your state legislators are, and some of those seemingly less sexy but incredibly impactful. And that's why Tech for Campaigns focuses so heavily on those kinds of races. So a huge thank you to Delegate Cole and future Senator Salvador, and to TJ, Greg, and Chris Aaron, and everyone. Thank you so much. If we didn't get to your questions, you're welcome to email us or tweet to us. Thank you guys.